Welcome to Brave with Lisa YouTube channel. My name is Lisa Bruton and my goal is to inspire you to live bravely in that unique rhythm of grace that God has designed just for you. On this channel, we are going to be hearing from amazing people from all different walks of life who are bravely walking in that unique rhythm of grace and calling that God has designed just for them. I know that as we hear their stories, we are going to learn a lot. We're going to find keys that are going to help us to also walk bravely in that unique rhythm of grace and that unique calling that God has just for you and for me. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to Brave with Lisa YouTube channel. My name is Lisa Bruton and today I have the gorgeous Jem Harris with me. Now, Jem, I love Jem. We go way back. We used to go to church together. She is one big-hearted, tender-hearted woman, but she is brave. She has a very powerful voice and a message to share with the world, and she carries a big calling and dream. So welcome, Jem.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for having me.
It is so wonderful to have you. Jem, can you tell us a little bit about your world, what it looks like, all the hats you wear, and then what makes your heart sing?
Yeah, absolutely. So my world at the moment, what it looks like, I live in North Lakes with my family, my husband and my two girls. My eldest has just turned 14 recently, and I feel like my world is turned upside down, like a switch was flicked and it's a whole new world of parenting. So it's I love it though. She's amazing. And then I have my youngest is Holly and she's 9. We live in North Lakes, and my husband, he works for a family business up the coast. And I've just about 6 months ago had a transition of work, and I'm now working in communications for my church and for a network of churches as well, and a couple of extra clients that I've added on to that. So life looks very different in the last 6 months, but it's mostly working from home, which is like the biggest gift God has given me this year. So yeah, that's a bit of my world.
Congratulations on the new job.
Thank you. Yeah, that's like 3 or 4 new jobs all at once, but it's been really good. And what makes my heart sing, I guess, obviously there's, the family, having a lovely and positive family life is what makes my heart sing. But fulfilling the call, I suppose, that God has on my life has always been a heartbeat of mine. I haven't been able to escape, no matter how many times I have tried to escape, because it's such a strong calling. Sometimes that can actually feel frustrating when the seasons are in different stages. But yeah, I think I was given a word at a women's conference a number of years ago, and it was just the word communication, and it sounded like a really strange word. I didn't even know what it means, as any more than just like speaking. But even now working in communications, I'm learning there's so much more to the word communication as well. And so I just have a real heart to communicate God's word and his heart for his women particularly, and for people in general, whether that be speaking, writing, or all the other things communication now involves in my world. So it's cool. Now I'm working in communications, and yeah, that's definitely one of the things that makes my heart sing.
Oh, isn't that amazing? And I have no doubt you're in training still with that calling on communication, the fact that he's got you in that job. And oh wow, that's incredible. I can't wait to learn from you more about what communication is.
I'll keep you posted. I'm still figuring it out.
Jem, I've known you long enough to know that there's also another layer to your life, which is your health journey. Are you able to share a bit about, I suppose, when it started and just how it's impacted your world and how that looks?
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing the maths yesterday in preparation for this conversation, and I think it was about 14 years ago, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I had just had my first child. I was quite young. I had Ray at 18 years old, and I was a single mum at the time. I had met my husband though, and he was in my life then, which was a real blessing. But I remember I was diagnosed about 2 weeks into my relationship with my now husband. And so it's been 14 years, and it's been a lot of ups and downs. My journey with Crohn's disease and with autoimmune diseases and digestive tract issues, it's all very individual and it's all very different depending on the person going through it. But my journey has been quite, I guess outsiders might say extreme, From the beginning, my disease was very aggressive. So I've had countless surgeries to the point where I think it was 7 years ago now, I had my whole large bowel removed and a stoma put in place, which is, for those that don't know, it's like a bag that sits on the outside of your body that acts as the catch-all for the contents of your bowel. So it's been a lifesaver for me. But still, after that, lots of admissions and emergency situations, just managing the disease. And in 2020, I think it was just before COVID all happened, my bowel actually perforated because of a scope that I had, a routine scope that I had. There was so much inflammation going on that the bowel perforated. And so I had emergency surgery then, but that actually led to an additional diagnosis, because as I recovered from that surgery and I was off of medication, new symptoms arose without that medication being present. So I now have ankylosing spondylitis as well. So as I recovered from that surgery, there was a period of a number of months where I couldn't walk or stand. I bought like a walking frame to go to the shops and things. And yeah, it was a really scary place when it was still first that diagnosis and not knowing what was going on. But now I'm back on medication and we found a great management system for that new diagnosis. And yeah, so I guess that's the most recent drama that we've experienced, but it's just been a lot of those things with my particular health journey. So yeah, 14 years, lots of ups and downs. There's blessings that come with it, but yeah, it's been a challenge.
And sorry, excuse me, how does that impact your family life and just life in general?
Yeah, hugely. And I think it's something you figure out as you're going through it, how much it impacts you. I've been talking to a few girls recently who are at the beginning of their diagnosis journey. And I just remember being at that beginning stage. And at that time, you don't know what is disease and what's not, like, and it really shakes your identity because you're sick all the time, you don't have energy, and labels can tend to get thrown on you, and you can throw labels on yourself as well, you know, not committed, unreliable. And it's true. That's definitely how it looks. But when you take that on to your identity, I think a big part of the journey has been separating myself and who I am and who God has made me to be from this disease that I happen to have, and being able to say, no, I'm not. I am a hard worker. I am committed. I can do these things, but I'm also juggling this other side of things. So yeah, I think identity has been a huge part that has impacted. It's impacted my kids and my husband in a huge way. Like, I'm a pretty honest, Lisa, you know, we're talking about it, I'm pretty honest with how it goes. And my first year of marriage with Terry, it was such an extreme situation. You know, he was taking on Raya as a child, which he loved and which was, you know, just the best thing. But I was newly diagnosed, you know, a wife running a house and a mum and having to work. And I didn't understand how much my disease was affecting me, let alone Terry understanding. So as you're just moving into this new stage of life and figuring out how things work, and I'm useless at all of the things, it was really difficult, but that's improved, and it's improved out of sight, particularly as my disease got more extreme and more visible, and we were both able to see, oh, okay, this is actually what's going on. This is what we're dealing with. My youngest, Holly, she gets quite a lot of anxiety because she's been there for some extreme emergency situations. I think my disease has also impacted my husband with anxiety and depression that he'll continue to. It's not the whole reason for that by any means. We can all be predisposed to these things, but it's definitely been a contributing factor. But at the same time as the negative thing has impacted our life, it, you know, personally, it stops you from being able to, it seemingly stops you from being able to do the things you wish you could do. You feel very limited and you're not really keeping up with your peers, and that can be frustrating. But aside from all of those things, it has brought my husband and I closer than anything else. My kids have such emotional empathy and intelligence for other people that are going through hard times. And they're such a good support for me. You know, I was just recently in hospital a couple of weeks ago for a few days, and they just know how to help you and serve you and get you through that stage, which I wish they didn't have to, but it's actually a really good thing for their character as they get older. So yeah, there's not really a facet of life that it doesn't permeate, but there are good parts and bad parts to that.
I love how you identified about your identity and how with those labels that were thrown on you and that you took on yourself at times, what made you start to go, hang on a moment, I'm not going to partner with those words, I'm actually going to partner with what God's saying? What was there a pivotal moment there? Or
I think I came to a real point of frustration in life 3 or 4 years ago now. I was trying to walk out the call that I believe God has for me. I was trying to be mum, my husband hurt his back quite significantly as well. So trying to support him and do all of the things, wear all of the hats and push forward really strongly with God's called me to do this thing and I want to get this thing done. And it began to be really frustrating. And I began to be really confused about who I was, what I'm called to do, what is God asking me. There's just a lot of confusion and frustration, which came out through a lot of different areas of life. And I think there's been an unraveling of that confusion and a clarity that God is bringing through, there's been a lot of things that I've done, I suppose, in that time. There's a course called Reform. It's a Spirit and Truth course that a guy called Pat Hegarty runs. I did Arise Sanctuary, the first retreat. That's probably the first time I delved into, trying to do this spiritual inner work. And so Arise Sanctuary was my first experience of that. Then I did these Reform courses with Pat Hegarty as well. And I'm just diving in deeper to my relationship with God and asking him to give me these answers and tell me who I am and what he wants me to do and how I'm supposed to do it, because I was so frustrated. And I think it hasn't been a pivotal moment, but it's been a slow unraveling. And I recently, I have been seeing a psychologist, just because mental health goes hand in hand with chronic illness. It's something I probably should have done a long time ago, and I'd recommend anyone else to do a long time before I have. But just listening to the things she was saying and just having that permission to just separate yourself and say, no, that's not who I am. This has come about this way because of these things. And I do take responsibility as well for times in life where obviously we're all crap at times and we all let people down, and I can't blame everything on my illness, but just, in my heart and in my mind, being able to separate that identity from my disease and not let those labels, I just have to rip them off, because they're just causing so much confusion and heartache. Yeah.
It sounds like too that you were saying, there was this period of time when you were just pushing for it to do the call of God and, to be the mom and I guess fit the mold that we all think we need to fit or meet that bar that we put there for ourselves, or those expectations. And sounds like grace kind of flooded in and removed that bar for you. Is that what happened?
That sounds like a lovely version of it. It didn't feel graceful at all, but yes, it is God's grace. But it was like, my Crohn's journey has been really hectic, but this period of time was the most emotionally painful. And I guess because it was a conglomeration of everything, but it is what's happened, but it didn't feel pretty. It didn't feel lovely. It felt, like being torn apart. I stopped, pursuing, I guess, the call that I felt God did have on me for that time. I went and got a job that was a massive, massive blessing, but not suited to not suited to my body and not suited to my gifts. And that was where God had me. That was completely his will. And he has just done amazing things through that. But it was like a breaking of my spirit. It was like a surrender. Okay, God, take it all. I'm going to go. He opened the door for that to happen. And it was a real breaking of the spirit. I felt like a wild horse who had been like muzzled and chained up. And so it was painful, but I'm coming out of that and seeing the fruit of what God intended through that. So yeah, it was God. It was definitely by God's grace, but I fought it all the way.
Yeah.
So, which is my own fault.
I think we can all relate to that, Jem, because so many of us have like this burning passion, and we all get frustrated if we can tell that there's something big on our lives, and we want to do it right now, and there's a frustration, but then there is that point where you got to let it go and hand it back to God and say, let's do it your way.
Exactly.
And it sounds like he took you on a windy, different road to the way you would have liked to have got to that point.
He did. He definitely did. And I'm very grateful for it. Like, this very explicit, like literally so my boss now, who has given me the opportunity to work from home and started me working in communications, I met his wife working in this job. So they talk about, there's this thing it's like a hype word at the moment, it's linear spaces. I'm probably using the wrong language. But basically it's like this waiting, a hallway. So architecturally, it's a space that would be a hallway. It's not meant to be stayed in, it's meant to be passed through. And often it's that hallway that is going to get you to that next thing. And I literally can align the dots of where God has taken me, and I'm blown away by it and grateful for it, because he never left me. It could have felt a bit like an abandonment, but it wasn't at all. His plan was greater and better. So
amazing. And so what would you say to people who are in that hallway at the moment?
Someone wise told me recently, like, that those hallways, it's not good to rush out of them before God intends you to, but it's also not good to stay too long. So it's, I guess, about being sensitive to the Holy Spirit and listening to God's timing about how long you need to stay there, because you need to stay there for those lessons. I needed to stay there. I learned so much in that time, but to stay there too long and not follow God's prompting when he's telling you it's time to move through can land you in a lot of pain as well. Yeah.
So tell me about that time when God said, okay, time to move out of the hallway. Was it scary, or was it exciting, or
Both. Because I suppose one of the lessons that I had learned, as opposed to Jem 4 years ago, was that my calling and purpose, my individual calling and purpose, didn't come above the ability to take care of my family and to put those things first. So now, with that great wisdom that God had bestowed to me in that period of time, it was scary, because now my decisions, it doesn't just affect me, it affects my family. So making the right decision for my kids and taking a risk and stepping out of something really safe and stable into something that's not as stable, you don't know where it could go, or you're trying something new, you don't know if you're going to be good at it. Yeah, it was really scary, but really exciting at the same time.
And how did you know that this was for you?
Yeah, I think I can make decisions. I'm pretty impulsive, so I can be like, yeah, that sounds great, I would do that. So my husband being on board and him taking the time to be able to know what it's going to look like and accept what it will look like and be comfortable. Like, so his blessing was huge. And I think that was probably, he was always very supportive. He's my biggest fan as far as God's call in my life. He believes in me and in the things that he thinks God, that I believe in, that my husband agrees that God wants to use me in. And so he's a huge support of that. But because of my limited capacity, because I do have less capacity, I'm not the person that can do this as well as this and that. So often in our lives, it looks like choosing between, I couldn't do both. I couldn't continue to work in my very safe, stable job and take on all of this new things, and do it in extra time, because I know, and we've learnt with my health, I don't have that capacity. So us coming to terms with, taking that step together and being okay with it. And just doing due diligence and making sure it added up for the family. Like I had to be a bit of an adult. So yeah.
Oh, those adult things we have to do. I'm keen to know, Jem, in those times, because I know you've mentioned, you go into hospital, there's been moments of going into hospital, and also times when you had to walk with your walker, or a walker to get around. As a friend, or as I guess what I want to know is, a lot of us do have friends in our world that are walking a health journey of some sort, and some are chronic like yours. As a friend, how can we support, or what's some great things that we can do just to be a good friend to you and to people in that journey?
I'm super blessed to have a really close knit group of girlfriends that are a great support. It's so individual about, I think, what someone might find helpful, but I can only speak for me. And I think one of the best things that my friends have been able to do for me is, I guess they get to see, no one sees the true, like my husband probably sees the most of it, and even he still can't see every tiny thing. But my friends are probably the next, they do see, the closest of what it really looks like beneath the surface of having a chronic illness. And something that they've done for me is just be really proud of me because they understand the cost of me doing something. And some days that's a shower. So like having friends that are super proud of you, that encourage you, even if all you've done that day is manage to get up and have a shower, or even if you didn't get to the shower that day, like they will find something about that day that you have done well, and they will redeem it. They'll help you redeem that day. They'll encourage you and spur you on, and just be proud of all you've done, which has been a real encouragement. The other thing is to, I don't know whether other people struggle with this, so I'm not sure if anyone else will relate to this except for myself, but I think believing what your friend is telling you, believing them on the days when it's hard, believing them on the days where they are having to pull out of something and disappoint you, believing that it's necessary and that they love you. And it's just, I guess, trusting what they're saying to you is true, is just really, really hard, because I find with an invisible illness, it can be hard to, there's a big gap between your reality and people's understanding. Even the people that love you the most, there's an inevitable and very understandable gap. And I carry that a lot, whether it's, my workplace and having to have 2 sick days or things like that, or whether it's letting friends down or pulling out of things at the last minute. Just trusting, I guess, your friends' ability to know when they have to pull back and those kinds of things. That's definitely a hard one, but it's, And the other thing is so the scariest place to eat for me is like a staff room of full of 10 or 12 people with different ideas who know somewhat of your health journey. It's terrifying to pull out your lunch and start eating it, because it is so different. What works for somebody else may not work for someone else. And so don't offer advice. Don't tell them what you're eating and say what they should be eating. As I've had the most lovely people, friends, try and sell me something because of, a multi-marketing, whatever that thing is called, based on your health condition, and just don't do that. If there's no doubt that if your friend has chronic illness or something, that they've done everything, they know everything, they've heard of everything, they've tried what they could, and if they want to know, they'll ask you, but just don't.
They're really great tips, and it sounds like your friends hold this space for you and a lot of grace, but also just champion you in all that you do. And they sound like incredible friends.
Yeah, they definitely are. Yeah.
It sounds like your family, like your husband and your children, are just beautiful as well and adore you, and rightly so, because I know that you're a great mum and a great wife. And so well done on just finding that unique rhythm that God has for you, and rather than fighting it and demanding how it should look, you've submitted it to him and you ride the rhythm with him, and I think that is brave.
Oh, thank you, Lisa.
Jem, I know you're on Instagram. How can people find you if they just want to? Because you're really encouraging. You bring really great words on your Instagram as well. So how can people find you?
Yes, so I on Instagram it's probably her armory. So her underscore armory on Instagram. I don't write as much on there anymore because I'm doing that for so many other people that my own one has sort of gone out the window, but I still get on there. I love writing. So every now and then I still just write a post just about life because it's one of the ways I process things. So her armory, definitely follow it along because there will be more things to come in the future once my life settles down a little bit and I get used to this new rhythm of working from home and managing all the socials. But yeah, so her armory, and that's probably the best way. I mean, you can follow me personally if you want to, Jemi Lou, JEMI_LOU. Yeah, I don't speak about health all the time, but I definitely speak about it every now and then because yeah, it's just
You speak about life,
yeah,
which is all encompassing.
yeah.
Well, Jem, I have so appreciated your time, your honesty, your story, and just the gems that you have brought us today. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be on here with you, and I just love what you're doing with Arise. And I'm so excited to have been watching your journey and to just watch it continue to just go on and on. It's actually watching your relationship with Jesus and how you trust him and the belief and the faith that you have and that you continue to put in him for these big dreams is a huge encouragement to my heart, particularly in this last little while, because I've lost a little bit of that. And I love watching you and learning from you and putting that dreamer back in my heart. So thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Jem. You're so kind. Thank you, beautiful. Mwah.
Thank you. Love you.
Thanks for joining me on Brave with Lisa. I hope that it has inspired or impacted you in a small or large way. Feel free to comment, to subscribe, and share with some friends. And please join us next week on another conversation we will have here on this channel on Brave with Lisa.